Welcome back to the course LTE System Overview. Now we will talk about carrier frequency and EARFCN. EARFCN means EUTRAN Absolute Radio Frequency Channel Number and depicts a certain subband of the frequency band that we are talking about. So for LTE we can use different frequency bands which are characterized by a frequency band number and a certain frequency range. And within this band, we have certain channels, which are then characterized by the channel number, frequency channel number. So here we see, for example, the 4T frequency bands that can be used for LTE at the moment. Band number 1 we already know, because it is the frequency band that is usually used for UMTS in the whole world. We see that those frequency bands are characterized by certain numbers in downlink and uplink, because we have here a certain number of frequency division duplex bands. If we talk about our band number 1, for example, we have a certain downlink frequency that is the lowest one that can be used, which is 2110 MHz. But we have another frequency for the uplink to be used. So here the lowest one is 1920 MHz. This is 200 MHz lower. And a very good example for frequency division duplex. This means that our downlink and uplink is sent in parallel, but on two different frequencies. The uplink frequency usually is lower than the downlink frequency, because if we transmit on a lower frequency, we have a lower power consumption, and in our user equipments, our cell phones, we usually have less power available than in the eNote B. We also see that every frequency band is characterized by a certain offset value, which increases over the bands. Our band number 1 has an offset value of 0 and a certain range of channel numbers. They are here called N downlink and N uplink. Number, downlink, number, and of uplink. So for band number 1, we have a range of 0 to 599 channels for the downlink, and 18,000 to 18,599 for the uplink. We can now calculate from every frequency that we have within a certain band to the channel number and vice versa. So, for example, if we are transmitting and receiving data between a UE and an eNote B, we have two different frequency channel numbers that we can calculate, one for the downlink, one for the uplink. So this is the formula how frequency for the downlink and frequency channel number for the downlink can be calculated into each other. For the uplink, it's the same. So here we see when we have our offset and our frequency and our lowest frequency of the band, we can calculate the channel number. And if we have the offset, the channel number, and the lowest frequency of the band, we can calculate the frequency that we are really talking about. Here we have an example for band number 1. When we talk about the frequency 2127 MHz, then we can calculate from this formula we solved for the frequency channel number in this row. Then we can calculate that we are talking about frequency channel number 174. If we would have the channel number and want to know which frequency this means, we could, of course, set in the numbers here in this row, and we would come to 2127.4 MHz. This is the principle behind the channel numbers and the calculation between frequency band or frequency subband and frequency channel number. And so far for this chapter, thank you for watching.